or you don't know Shorebird as such, we're not an HR consultancy, we're a recruitment process outsourcing organisation. But essentially what we're looking to do is attract talent to your business, help you manage that talent via an applicant tracking system or contact management system, and then obviously support that function as well, where as and where you need it. So we're not a one-off sort of solution. It's really sort of trying to understand what your business is about, where you might need some extra support or some extra sort of technology in there, or maybe some extra applicant attraction techniques, and then that's sort of where we sort of fit into the jigsaw of what your recruitment strategy is all about. So if you know anybody that's wanting to look at their recruitment strategy, maybe make it more seamless, maybe make it more efficient, maybe make it more cost effective, then please do get in touch and let us know if there's anything or any questions or maybe a discussion that you might want to have. We'd really love to have the opportunity to discuss that with you. Okay, so enough about us, on to Jan. So welcome, Jan. I'm going to pass you over and I'll manage the chat and hopefully everybody can hear. Jan, off you go, and thank you very much. We'll speak at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm sorry for the people who seem to be having some problems with hearing us. Hopefully you can listen to the webinar later. I think this must be the wind that's causing all these problems. So a very little bit about us. My company's called Head, Heart, Brain, and we know that's a pretty quirky name, but it describes what we do. So we work with the head in leadership development, the cognitive, rational content. We work with the heart, so getting the emotional engagement of leaders. And lastly, we work with the brain, which is mainly about understanding what neuroscience is telling us and how that can help us provide better reasons for change, I guess, and better ways of changing for leaders. We also do massive amounts of work with HR functions, particularly in HR capability. So you can see more about us on our website if you're interested, headheartbrain.com. So today, what Liz and I talked about, and this was as a result of a little survey we did at a previous webinar on what areas were people interested in terms of HR and their own performance. And getting goals right was one of the things that people said they were really interested in, and that came top of the survey. So what I'm going to talk about today comes from our new book, which is called Brain Savvy Leading. And the book is really, it's a short little book that you can kind of sit on your desk or sit on your Kindle. And it has a number of facts and figures about that neuroscience are telling us about. And then as you flip over the page, it tells you about a tip or a tool, so you can do something with that information and apply it to the way you do your job. If you stay to the end of the webinar, we'll tell you how you can get some free copies of that. So that's your incentive to stay on. Okay, so goals. So I'm going to look at 3 areas of goals, and I'll also answer some of your questions as I go through. The first thing is how you basically set your goals up so that you can be successful in the first place. And one of the things that the science has found is that we need 2 types of goals. So we need goals that kind of motivate us to do something, that tell us why we want to achieve something. So that might be a goal, something like, you know, I want to be more strategic in the way I do my HR business partner role, for example. And why goals really are the things that kind of get us out of bed or give us the motivation to change. And they tend to be activated in what's called the default system of the brain. The default system kind of runs down the outside of the brain, but more in the middle. So if you imagine kind of it goes from the top of your nose around the back of your head. And what we know about the default system is it's the area of the brain where we think about ourselves and we think about others. So it kind of makes sense that this is the area that gets activated when we're thinking about goals that are important to us. So why goals? Important to say, why you want to do something, why it's important to you. And the more specific you can be about that, the easier it is. The second type of goals, which are important and which sometimes people forget about, is how are you going to achieve that? So how goals tend to be the steps and the activity that you're going to take in order to achieve the end result, the outcome, if you like. And the thing about how goals is they tend to activate much more our rational, logical, planning part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, which is just behind your left and right eye. So what we often see with clients is they have lots of hows, so they're going to read up on what the company strategy is. They're going to talk to business managers about what's going on in their part of the business. But if they haven't got a clear why attached to that, you tend to run out of steam. So the advice here is you need both types of goals, and make sure that those goals link, that there's a clear link between why you want to do something and the more detailed steps that you need to go about to achieve it. And one of the questions that was asked, I think, before we started was, what do I think about SMART goals? And I guess I'm a bit schizophrenic about SMART goals. I think it's really useful to have a way of writing your goals, because it makes sure that you do think about both the what and the how. I think one of the problems with SMART goals is that we can get too hung up on the measurement bit and try and look constantly just for measures that are about numbers, as opposed to what will be different if you change these goals. So I think it's a useful acronym, but don't let it kind of get in the way of you actually writing about what's going to be useful to both motivate you and to tell you what the steps are. So I hope that helps with that question. It's just my opinion, by the way. Obviously, SMART's been around a long time and lots of people like it a lot. Any questions about how and why goals? Does that kind of make sense to people? And the thing about having how and why is it helps you to stay on track, because you keep motivated. The next thing I wanted to talk about is something called your preferences, particularly in the way that you're motivated. And this is an idea that if anybody's trained in neuro-linguistic programming, you'll be familiar with. But the neuroscience is now actually showing us kind of why we have these preferences, if you like. So what we know is that people have different ways in which they like to be motivated. Some people are motivated to achieve goals because they're avoiding something they don't like. So we can think of them as moving away from something that's unpleasant. So you hear people say, I'm moving to a new job because I can't stand my boss. That would be an away from goal. Or I want to go on this training program because I'm struggling with understanding this new computer system. Those are people expressing an away from motivation or an away from goal. And what we find is that people who are away from or avoidance orientated, we see activity on the left-hand side of the prefrontal cortex in the brain. Other people have more of a preference to be what's called approach or towards motivated for their goals. So when people are towards motivated, you'll hear them say things like, I have a vision of a job that will make me happy, or I want to attend this training because I'm motivated to acquire new skills and to get better and better at what I do. Those are much more descriptions of being towards or approach motivated. And we see the opposite side of the brain, so the right-hand side of the prefrontal cortex activated when people are talking or thinking about their approach goals. So this thing that neuro-linguistic programming has talked about for many years, neuroscience is now showing that there are actually differences in the areas of the brain that are activated with people who have those preferences. So why does this matter? Well, what tends to happen is, particularly if you're using something like SMART, you tend to write goals in the way that your organization wants you to write them. And that may not be the way that motivates you. So if you're writing goals in a way that describes much more what you're moving away from or what you're avoiding, you're probably not going to be very excited or motivated to do those goals if your preference is for approach. In contrast, if your preference is for approach and if your preference is for avoid and you're writing goals in an approach way, they probably sound terribly kind of woolly and vague and a bit idealistic to you. So writing your goals in a way that feels you and that motivates you and that kind of matches your own way of motivation. And it's relatively easy to know what your preference is. Listen to the way you describe your goals or describe what you want to do and what's motivated you to do something.
The question there from Amanda.
Yeah,
on that.
So Amanda, so, one easy way of doing that is to ask somebody, why they did something. So why did you leave your last company? And then listen to their response. It's really quite easy thing to do once you tune your ear into it. Neuro-linguistic program has also created a set of questions like that, and I think if you look online, you can actually, there's a whole kind of almost like a Myers-Briggs type tool that will help you look at preferences on lots of different types of preferences. And there's also a fantastic book which is called, sorry, I'm just, as I'm talking to you, looking at what it's called, Words That Change Minds, which would be the other thing that if you're interested in this to have a look at. And if you've got a team, it's quite useful to make sure people understand what their preference is in terms of their goals, and to be tolerant of people who might be writing their goals in a way that is different to the way you might write them because their preference is different to yours. So one of the questions we had before the webinar starts was, if I'm not on track to meet my goals, how can I get back on track and get motivated? Well, I think one of the ways you can do that is to check whether your goals are written in a way that's motivating to you. The next thing we're going to talk about is also another way that might help you.
There's a comment in there.
What, the one about the motivation matrix?
Yeah.
Could you use a motivating matrix, internal, positive, external, negative? Yeah, I think you could do that. I think that's a really interesting idea, Nicola. Okay, so one of the things that the neuroscience has found is, psychological science in particular, is people tend to underestimate the things that will send them off track. So the things that will get in the way of them achieving their goals. And I think some of this has been caused by quite a lot of research back in the sort of 80s and 90s that said you had to be very positive about what you did and optimistic. Now, that research is valid in that you do need to be optimistic about your goals. There's lots of evidence that if you believe you can achieve your goal, you probably will. And if you're doubtful about whether you can achieve the goal, then you almost certainly won't achieve it. But there are also limits to that optimism, and one of the things that's important is to plan around what might send you off track. So what might get in the way of you achieving your goals? And this notion of planning what's called if-then implementation strategies, which is a lot of jargon to say you work out what might send you off track and what you're going to do about it if that happens. So if you want to lose weight, if I want to eat more healthily and lose weight, then when I'm offered dessert, I will ask for fruit. And what the science has found is that if you plan these if-then strategies in advance, and particularly if you write them down, you're much less likely to be sent off track. So you're much less likely to accept that dessert and forget to ask for fruit if you're on a healthy diet. So writing down, so first of all, brainstorm what are the things that may send you off track with your goals. So if going back to that idea of being more strategic, if what sends you off track is that you tend to come in the morning and answer your emails rather than doing your background research for the management meeting so that you're more prepared to make a strategic contribution, you might have an if-then strategy that says, if I'm going to be more strategic, then I will do my research before doing my emails, or something similar to that. So the key points are, 1, brainstorm what might get into your way. 2, come up with a strategy that's going to help you overcome those things. And 3, write them down, and then monitor your own performance at remembering to adhere to them. And setting yourself up little jolts and reminders may be something that, a message that comes up on your phone before you open your emails in the morning, for example, if what you're trying to do is do your research before you do your emails, can be really, really helpful with these types of things. So that's if-then strategies. I don't have a template to progress my goals, but I'm sure there must be an app that does that these days. So if you find one, maybe you let everybody else know. So the final thing I wanted to look at is about knowing yourself better. And we've got a little video to do this with, so you don't have to listen to me.
Logical first steps is to stop. Okay, obvious, right? After all, the economic model of behaviour suggests we make rational decisions based on the goal we're trying to achieve. But we all know that's not what actually happens. It's the same at work. There's often an obvious rational path to a longer-term benefit. For example, we may say we want to work fewer hours. Going home on time is the rational way to do this, but it doesn't mean we do it. The thing is, some people are better at taking the rational route than others. Why is this? Well, neuroscience is coming up with an interesting hypothesis all about self-comparisons. The hypothesis is that we think about our future self like we think about another person. How well we know ourselves determines whether we follow our impulses or our goals for the future. Without getting too technical, it's about the different level of activation in our medial prefrontal cortex when thinking about ourselves now and in the future. When these levels are different, it suggests we think about what we'll want in the future as if it's for someone else. People who see themselves in the future as similar to now are more likely to resist temptation and meet their goals. Those who see themselves as very different, like another person, find resisting harder. So why is this relevant for us as leaders? Well, the theory goes that if we see our future self the same as our current self, we're more likely to achieve our goals. If you need to change or build a new skill, for example, try to put yourselves into the shoes of your future self. feel the benefit of the change you need to make. It's what winning sports people do. They see themselves crossing the line first. Adopt their techniques. See yourself in great detail, as you will be. And if you're not convinced, fake it. Act as if you're already your future self. Science tells us it works. One more thing. Be clear about your current reality and recognize the limits of how much you will be able to change. It can help you think about your current reality in the context of your goals. In short, if you need to change, it has to be from how you are now, not how you wish you were.
Hopefully everybody heard that okay.
If you did have any problems, that is on my website, and I think, Liz, you're going to send the link, aren't you?
I am indeed, yes.
So I think it's quite an interesting, an interesting concept, that the more we are clear about the link between who we are now and who we want to be in the future, the more likely we are to achieve our goals. So getting really clear and not being too romanticized about how much we can change is probably an important part of both staying on track with your goals and being successful achieving them. So the other question here I haven't asked is how to use neuroscience to deal with difficult people. I'm not sure I have time to go into a lot about that now, but there is on our website a guide about using neuroscience for relationships and influence called The Neuroscience of Relationships, which you can download for free. So whoever asked that question, please feel free to go to the website www.headheartbrain.com, and under Research and Guides you'll find that, and I think you'll find it quite useful. So I promised you that those who stayed on the line, there would be an offer. So we've got two offers here for our new little book. And as I said, the book has all the ideas that we've covered today, plus lots more, about 200 pages of ideas and tools and tips. And I'm offering it to this group. So the first 10 people who send me an email with their postal address, I'll send you a paper copy. But if you'd also like a Kindle copy, or you're not one of those first 10 people, we have it on a free offer, free download from Amazon Kindle from tomorrow until Sunday evening. So if you go to the Amazon website and just put in Brain Savvy Leading, you'll see that offer come up, and very happy for you to download that. And I'd also really love to hear what you think about the book and how you use it. So if you do download a copy, or you get one of the paperback copies, please do email me and give me some feedback, or do a Kindle review. Any of those would be great to hear from you. So I think that's what I had to say on goals. If anything, I'm 5 minutes early. So if there are any other questions we've got a little bit of time.
Yeah, there's a question here from Sue asking, do you believe in the gut brain?
In the gut brain? I can't see that.
I've put it into the notes because it probably got lost in the conversation.
Okay. If you mean, Sue, by the gut brain that there is activity in our gut, i.e. in our sort of digestive system, that is linked to the brain, the answer is definitely yes. There's something called the vagus nerve, which runs really down from our brain and all through our major organs. And within that nerve, there are a number of very similar cells to what we have in our brain. And there's a lot of evidence that that vagus nerve kind of sends signals to our brain and telling us what to do. So fear, for example, or joy or reward, and things around stress. But it also, the flow goes the other way. So our brain sends signals down through the vagus nerve, for example, to turn off our digestive system if we're in a highly stressed state. So it's a two-way flow. It's a really interesting kind of area, and it's linked to the brain. If people are interested in that, I'd really recommend taking a look at a blog that I wrote about a year ago called Are You in Kitten or Lion Mode, which is on our website, which talks about how our gut reaction and our brain interact together and impact performance. And a lot of the ideas in there are from a neuroscientist called John Coates, who's done some interesting research in the area. So please have a look at that if that's an area of interest for you.
Interesting. I think what I'll do is I will put on a link to your website, Jan, and a couple of the points that you've mentioned today as well, with regards to a few of the different areas. That just gives people a quick, easy reference to go and find that information, to find some more information from it. Emma's just
there's something from Emma here as well, saying I'd love to learn more about neuroscience. The other book that we've written is called Brain Savvy HR, a neuroscience evidence base. We wrote that back in May, and it's really a kind of a Bible for HR people. It gives you kind of a number of topics that HR people will be interested in. So everything from learning to reward to feedback to performance management, and talks about what the neuroscience is saying about that. So that may be another source. And Emma, feel free to send me your postal address and I'll pop one in the post to you if you'd like one.
brilliant. Are there any other books that you recommend reading, Jan, as well, to sort of put some more?
If people are really interested in this, I think there are two books probably to read. One is Matthew Lieberman's book called Social, Why Our Brains Are Wired to Connect. Matt's one of the leading neuroscientists in the world, and he wrote the book last year. The good thing about it is it's extremely well researched, but he's also a brilliant writer, so it's very easy to read and quite engaging. And then the other one that I think most people will know about is David Rock's book, Your Brain at Work, which again is written in a very engaging way, a very accessible way. So those would be my two recommendations.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Thank you. Whew. Anybody got any more questions come through? Did we answer the one about? Oh, we've done this further signposting. If they're not on track to meet the goals, what's the best way to get back on track and keep motivated?
Well, I think a couple of things about what tends to happen to us when we go off track is we're quite hard on ourselves, and we think we need to be perfect. That if we make one little slip, then we tend to give up completely on the goal. So I think those if-then strategies, can kind of help you to know what the slips might be. But the other thing to think about is, just because you missed doing something towards your goal once doesn't mean that you've ruined the whole opportunity. So, give yourself a break, basically.
A bit like that diet goal.
Exactly.
One cream cake's not going to ruin my diet forever.
Exactly, and just get back onto it. And I think the key thing is, to be kind of honest with yourself about what you are able to do. So back to the kind of video, don't set things so kind of high that you're going to set yourself up for failure. And secondly, have a good plan about what you're going to do if you slip. That doesn't mean you've abandoned your goal completely.
Thank you. That's a good way to end it on, really, isn't it? Get back on there. That's brilliant. Thank you, Jan. That was absolutely brilliant. We had some really good comments as well coming through from everybody that's on the line as well, saying what a great session, and they've learned sort of quite a lot of things coming through. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. I know I've been completely enthralled there. I think I'm going to relook at all my goals and how I write them. I will send, as I said, I will send slides through with some information there from Jan. So I'll just speak to yourself, Jan, maybe tomorrow morning about what we can send through to everybody tomorrow for that. So thank you very, very, very much. Really appreciate it. Final note before I go, tomorrow we've got another webinar, Finance for Operational Managers, very, very different to what we've been listening today, but I'm sure there'll be another webinar coming through with regards to something about neuroscience for those that have been engaged and interested on today's webinar. I'll let you know about that as well. But do keep an eye on our website, as I say, because there is a lot there. And finally, somebody's going to come back to me. I hope it's Val that's going to come back with an idea for a webinar. So look forward to receiving that, Val. And thank you, everybody, for today, because it's been a fabulous webinar, I think, Jan, hasn't it, with all that engagement and interaction with everybody on the chat box. It's been lovely.
Yeah,
so
great
thank you
questions,
very much.
people. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Brilliant. So we're going to end the webinar in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day, and I hope you don't get blown away with the wind.
Wherever you are in the country.
Yeah.
Lovely. And we'll get that email sent to you tomorrow about how to go. Directly email Val today if you want a copy of that hard copy book, of course. Thank you. Thank you.